Thank you for joining. We thank our panelists in advance for presenting on the webinar today. I am so happy that you all are here. Thank you, our team, for your support. As I stated, thank you for joining the National Clean Energy Workforce Alliance. We are happy you are here with us today. Michelle, you can go to the next slide. We'll go ahead and get started. Just a little bit about the Interstate Renewable Energy Council, also known as IREC. We are a national nonprofit working to remove barriers to the deployment of clean energy for all Americans. We do this through state regulatory reform, local initiatives such as our Soul Smarts program, which help communities around the U.S. accelerate their solar and workforce development, through workforce development. Next slide, please, Michelle. We have an exciting webinar for you today. As usual, we'll give the introduction to the National Clean Energy Workforce Alliance, but the presentation will come from Opportunity at Work and Climate United. Courtney will provide an introduction, and Beth and Delia will provide information on Climate United. And Courtney, you'll be up in just a second. And then the last 30 minutes you can stay on screen though. The last 30 minutes of the webinar will be the question and answers. You can go to the next slide, Michelle. Just to give a shout out to our National Clean Energy Workforce Alliance partnerships, today's webinar is brought to you by our partners at National Council for Workforce Education and Bank of America. We have Cynthia Finley, who is the Vice President of Workforce Strategies and Innovation, myself, and Dr. Deb Rowe and Dr. Gerard Melicon, who is also a part of the National Clean Energy Workforce Alliance team. So we always like to thank our partners for working with us and making these webinars possible. Next slide, please. This is just a few reminders. All the listeners are on mute. If you have questions, you're more than welcome to drop your questions in the Q&A option at the bottom of your screen. We will be recording this presentation and posting it on the website and sending this presentation out to those who are registered. And these webinars happen every third Thursday of the month. We will have one more webinar in August, the third Thursday in August, and we will be sending out information on that webinar on social media. So please follow our LinkedIn page to keep up with what we are doing with the National Clean Energy Workforce Alliance. You can go to the next slide, please. And if you're on this webinar, we're hoping this is not your first webinar. If it is, go to our website and take a look at the past webinars we've had. But if you're here, you know that good workforce development does not happen by accident. And in order to rapidly scale a diverse and sustainable clean energy workforce, we will need to leverage best practices, resources, and create strong partnerships. I always like to say we must be intentional in order to meet our clean energy workforce goals. We continue to work to connect the dots to bring everybody out of their silos and address clean energy workforce development more holistically, focusing on every aspect of the workforce development landscape, from new learner and worker through recruitment and employer development. But also, you can never talk about recruitment without talking about retention of employees. So we have our work cut out for us. You can go to the next slide, please, Michelle. Our strategic areas of focus is training, education, and credentialing, funding and program design, recruitment and support of workers and learners, and employer recruitment. You can go to the next slide, Michelle. And just to let you all know that IREC has developed our Green Workforce Connect platform. It's a website connecting job seekers, employers, training providers, and contractors to support a highly trained and diverse energy workforce. This is our workforce development strategy. And as we continue to work in areas like registered apprenticeship programs and solar, we will be incorporating those technologies and projects into the Green Workforce platform. So if you have not taken a look, please take a look at the Green Workforce Connect website. We can drop that link in the chat, and keep your eye out on that website for what's to come. I'll turn it over now to Courtney Haynes so that she can give the introduction to our keynote panelists today. Thank you.
Hi. Well, here I am again. I guess I'm on at the right time. But hello, everybody. It's so nice to have you here. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your day and joining us for this webinar. I'm Courtney Haynes. I'm the Chief Engagement Officer at Opportunity at Work, which is a nonprofit social enterprise that works for and alongside STARS to support their economic mobility. Across the next hour, you're going to hear from Beth Bafford, who's the CEO of Climate United. Beth's going to provide an overview of the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund. She's also going to outline the strategic initiatives and future plans for maximizing the impact of this $6.97 billion grant from the National Clean Investment Fund. And she's also going to discuss Climate United's ongoing efforts and partnerships to drive clean energy adoption, workforce development, and generate high-quality jobs with a diverse and skilled workforce. Then you're going to hear from myself at Opportunity at Work and my colleague Delia Troy, and we're going to spend time introducing you all to the STARS language. STARS are individuals skilled through alternative routes. And we're also going to talk a little bit about the why and the value of skills-based hiring in the clean energy sector. We're going to share with you some data that shows the skills workers gain on the job and how to use this in your hiring and workforce planning in clean energy, and hopefully explain opportunities where we might further engage and collaborate. We are going to invite you to chat with us. There's going to be some prompts where we definitely want to hear from you around the barriers that you see, opportunities and solutions that you're considering. We got the opportunity with the IRAC team to go through the list of those joining us and certainly see in the chat from your titles and your organizations. It's just a remarkable and diverse group of stakeholders that are here today. So again, thank you. We've got employers and practitioners and workforce development agencies. And so this webinar truly from Climate United's perspective and Opportunity at Work's, we hope this is one of many hopeful engagements, and we hope this one is informative and opens up exploration of ideas, alignment, and potentially coordination down the road. We're then going to end with some questions and answers, and I know both Beth's team and Opportunity at Work team would look forward to talking with you all afterwards as well. So with that being said, that's a little bit about the agenda and the run of show, and I will hand it over to Beth from Climate United, who will go first.
Hi, everyone. It's lovely to be with you. Thank you so much for the opportunity. Thanks to the IREC team and the Opportunity at Work team for including us in this really critical and exciting discussion. I'm Beth Bafford, CEO of Climate United, which is we'll talk about a new coalition looking to implement the National Clean Investment Fund program under the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund, which was a program of the Inflation Reduction Act. So we'll go through a little bit of background and then certainly excited for the conversation and engagement with all of you. Go to the next slide. So just going to talk through who we are, what we're doing. Going to give a little bit of a primer on the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund, just so everybody understands the program. Talk through some of our investment strategy and what we're looking to do, both in direct investments as well as market building and workforce development. And then we'll talk through timeline and next steps. Next slide. And again. So Climate United is a coalition of 3 national nonprofit organizations focused on driving a clean energy, an equitable clean energy transition across Justice 40 communities in the US. The three organizations that have come together, and you can go to the next slide, have all been in the market for decades, focused on economic opportunity, the clean energy transition, environmental sustainability, really looking at this intersection of the clean energy transition with equitable economic development to make sure that as we think about this massive economic transition, that it benefits everyone. So Calvert Impact is the organization where I work, is a national, a global nonprofit that's been around for 30 years, really focused on driving private investment in low-income and disadvantaged communities in the US and globally, and has managed billions of dollars of investment in those sectors. Community Preservation Corporation is the leading national CDFI focused exclusively on affordable housing, and has been trying to decarbonize affordable housing properties since the Great Recession, and is really going to be supercharging that work through the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund. And Self-Help is a family of organizations, including 2 credit unions, a nonprofit advocacy organization, and a national loan fund, really focusing on bringing economic opportunity to all, particularly rural communities, communities of color, and low-income communities across the country. So the three of us came together to form the Climate United Coalition and apply for this historic program. Next slide. So this is a little bit wonky, but just for context, Climate United is both a legal entity, a distinct legal entity. So that's the entity that will be under contract with the EPA, as well as the brand of the coalition, which really looks to create opportunities across all the partners. So we are responsible for managing the funds, managing the award. We're responsible for managing a portion of the investment portfolio, and really the brand and the types of partnerships like workforce partnerships that are beneficial across the entire coalition. And then we have 2 sub-grantees, which are Self-Help and CPC affiliates. Next slide. So just wanted to give an overview of the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund, because we are one of many awardees under this program, and every awardee under the program is going to be acutely concerned about and focused on ensuring equitable workforce development and pathways to opportunity and green jobs. Next slide. So the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund has 3 programs. The National Clean Investment Fund, which is the program that we are awardee of, the Clean Communities Investment Accelerator, which is a program really to provide grants to community lenders across the country to support a broad and grassroots project development and financing ecosystem. And then Solar for All, which for any kind of state entities on the line will be familiar, is really a program to fund both states and tribal governments to support access to low-income solar for communities and families. So all 3 of these programs together are under the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund, but the program I'll be speaking about in more detail today is the National Clean Investment Fund. And this is the kind of, you can think of this is the kind of national green bank part of the program, focused on creating financial institutions and financial sustainability, but will work in very close coordination with the awardees of the Clean Communities Investment Accelerator and Solar for All across the country. Next slide. The interesting part about this program, and particularly for this discussion, is that the organizations that are receiving funds under this program are on the capital supply side. So you can think of how money is going to flow through organizations that are used to financing projects, whether that's a community or green lender, so a CDFI, a community bank, a green bank, or whether it's directly through one of the recipients into qualified projects. So we're on the capital supply side, providing financing to qualified projects. But importantly, we need to focus and look at the capital demand side, which is really how the projects are getting developed, how they're getting built, how they're getting staffed, who owns the companies that are doing that. And so that's a big part of our focus, is how do we ensure that the supply side and the demand side are coming together to maximize the potential outcomes and impacts of this program. So our funds will flow directly into qualified projects, as well as flow either through or alongside community and green lenders across the country. Next slide. These are some of the program requirements. So at least 40% of the investments in our program have to be investments in low-income and disadvantaged communities. All dollars have to be invested to support qualified projects. The majority of funds need to go into projects as investments, so loans, equity investments, credit enhancement. We do not have the ability to make grants to projects, and neither does the Clean Communities Investment Accelerator. So it's really loans and investments into projects, but can be combined with grants or other tax credits or other incentive programs. And then we can do financing directly or alongside a community lender. The three recipients of this program are ourselves, Coalition for Green Capital, and Power Forward Communities. So those were the three selectees under the National Clean Investment Fund competition. Next slide. The program objectives, which I think are critically important and kind of underpin all of our strategy, are really to optimize these three outcomes. One is obviously to significantly reduce greenhouse gas emissions and other air pollutants. That's an extremely important objective of the program. It's in the name. Two is to do so in a way that delivers direct and tangible benefits to people's lives. So how are we making the transition and access to clean technologies beneficial to people in the form of quality jobs, of energy savings, energy security, health benefits from reducing pollution, really looking at that intersection of the clean energy transition and direct tangible benefits in a way that people see and feel on a daily basis. And then third is to do this in a way that educates, demonstrates, and transforms the broader capital markets. So how do we make sure we are doing things in a way that brings other private capital along so that we can have any chance of meeting our country's 2050 net zero goals, really trying to activate a broader set of the market to be focused on these kinds of investments in these communities. Next slide. So this is just an example of one of the things we'll talk a little bit about, our investment strategy, but in terms of how those three objectives come together in an example of a project. So when we think of our residential strategy for both single and multifamily housing, we're looking at how we develop really high standards for eligibility. So how do we make sure that if we're investing in a project, in a house or a multifamily property, we're doing so to get to the highest standard. So things like energy efficiency, full electrification, removing on-site emissions from a building, and getting the energy sources from renewable energy. So really looking at how we're pushing the market on standards. Two is the direct benefits to people's lives. When we do those things that reduce greenhouse gases, we also do things like reducing energy bills and providing cleaner air. And making sure that those economic benefits are getting down to the tenants or the homeowners, the folks that are living in the housing. And then three, we're doing this in a way, running our programs in a way that is educating and demonstrating to first mortgage originators that they can incorporate carbon remediation into their processes, so that when this program we'll know if this program is successful, because those first mortgage originators will start to remediate carbon like they remediate lead or asbestos or other pollutants, and really look at how we get that kind of muscle memory built in the mortgage markets, so that every time we are now making a mortgage to a homeowner or to a developer, to a building owner, that we're doing so in a way that is getting to those high green standards. So that's just an example of how those three program objectives work together in the context of a single project. Next slide. One more. So we talk a lot in this program about qualified projects, and just wanted to make sure that everyone understood that definition and the priority categories that we'll be investing in, both ourselves and all the other awardees under the program. So the qualified projects have to meet 6 tests, and they have to meet all 6. So every investment we make needs to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. It needs to reduce or avoid emissions of other air pollutants. It needs to deliver additional benefits to American communities, and green jobs and quality jobs is one of those additional benefits that meets this test. It needs to finance a project that may not otherwise have been financed, mobilize private capital, and support commercial technologies. So in this definition, you can see that this program is really built to deploy what works. We know that these technologies, solar, storage, heat pumps, electric water heaters, electric vehicles, we know these things work, and we want to deploy those technologies as far and wide as we can to encourage adoption. The 3 priority categories in the program are distributed energy generation and storage. So smaller distributed energy, including solar. 2 is net zero emissions buildings. So looking at how we get fossil fuels out of buildings. And then 3 is zero emissions transportation or electric transportation. So those are the priority categories, although we can also invest in certain things that meet all the qualified project tests that are not in those priority categories. So those are just the things that the program wants us to focus on. Next slide. So what does this look like in a building? And I think, you know, there will be a big focus on building transformation in this program. So some of the things I mentioned, so we're looking at financing high energy efficiency. So looking at things like lighting, controls, building envelope, windows, looking at electrifying core systems and appliances. Again, removing fossil fuels from buildings, heating and cooling, water heating, appliances, cooking, looking at solar and solar readiness. How do we get a building either with direct on-site solar or hooked into community solar, and then charging infrastructure. So wherever we can with buildings, looking at how we are enabling the electric vehicle transition through adding charging infrastructure. So that's just an example of some of the interventions that we're talking about when we talk about electrifying buildings. Next slide. So this is going to get now into a little bit more of Climate United strategy. So a lot of those definitional items were on the program overall. So the qualified projects, priority categories, some of the requirements, those are for the entire program. And now moving into some of the things that we're focused on at Climate United. So these are really the 4 core outcomes that we are driving towards. So as we think about all of our money, our resources, our muscle in this program, really trying to drive towards these 4 things. One is a healthier planet and population. So really looking at how we increase health through these investments. 2 is an American-built green economy. So looking at both quality job creation, as well as demand for US manufactured technologies and growth for small businesses. So there's obviously a whole host of businesses that need to be engaged and a workforce that needs to be engaged to enable all of this activity. And we want to make sure that's homegrown. 3 is expanded economic opportunity. So really look at how we're putting money in people's pockets, both from energy savings and security, looking at promoting green home ownership and creating wealth. So looking at economic opportunity. And then lastly, inclusive and transform markets. So how are we bringing others along to make sure that this is a sustainable long-term investment in our country's transition? Next slide. In our application and work plan, we have committed to these targets. So we're committing to do at least 60% of our investments in low-income and disadvantaged communities, and that's as a specific definition from the EPA. We're doing at least 20% in rural communities, wanting to really make sure we're driving access to these technologies in rural communities across the country, and 10% in tribal communities. And really looking at how we can understand the nuance and challenges in some tribal communities, promote tribal sovereignty, and look to provide economic opportunity in tribal communities. Next slide. We have 6 main market segments that we're focused on. So I talked a little bit about our residential market segments, but we're looking at consumers. So we're looking at everything from single family homes, home upgrades, and EV auto loans, looking at multifamily properties, community infrastructure like houses of worship, childcare centers, and other community infrastructure, small businesses and commercial properties, schools and minority serving institution campuses, both buildings and transportation. And then we're looking at community solar and other electric vehicle infrastructure that we can help support. Overall, we're really trying to drive a path for people to decarbonize the places they live, work, learn, and play, because we think the more that these benefits really show up in people's lives, the more we will have the demand that will drive the transition that we need. Next slide. We won't go into this in too much detail because it's the supply side, but just how we're kind of getting money in the market. We'll be doing some standardized products, lending, some direct investments in lenders, and then direct investments or structured solutions from us in order to get these markets moving. Next slide. So this is one of the pieces that's most relevant. So market building and workforce. You can go to the next slide. One of the really exciting parts of this program is the recognition that in order to optimize our impact on the market, we have to both be a direct investor and a market builder. And we talk about market building, it's everything from the capital demand side, so looking at consumer awareness, demand generation, outreach and education, workforce development. How are we actually understanding demand and workforce for these projects? We can do direct pre-development support, so we'll have a pre-development grant program to support projects that otherwise couldn't get off the ground without that support. And then looking at the capital supply side, how are we aggregating assets, educating the market, bringing private capital along so that there is a much more inclusive market in our wake. And so we're really looking at this full, what are all the things in the ecosystem that have to come together in order to make this a successful program, not just through our direct investments, but through the ripple effects across the market. Next slide. And when it comes to workforce, we have a clear mission that we're really looking to prioritize and generate high quality jobs with a diverse and skilled workforce through our policies, our priorities, and our standards. And so we're now in the process of going through all of our investment criteria, collaborating with organizations like Opportunity at Work and others to really understand how we can leverage our market position to support quality labor practices, to support strong training programs, and really look at how we can act as a market signal to where there's workforce needs and partner with organizations across the country to fill those gaps. So we're not going to be running workforce programs directly. It's not our role in the market, but we want to make sure that we are closely collaborating, identifying areas where there are needs, looking at where there are strengths, holding up those examples, and looking to organize an ecosystem that is really creating quality careers for individuals interested in working on the transition. Next slide. So quick overview of timeline and kind of where we are in this process. You can go to the next slide. So we were awarded funds on April 4th. That's when the announcement came out. The last few months, we have been relatively heads down, really focused on the terms of the grant agreement, working on those, which are almost finalized now, looking to finalize the award agreement later this month or early August, and then looking to get out into the market with initial transactions later this year. We will not be kind of full force until probably early 2025, but we are excited to be out in the market in the next few months and really starting to test some of these theories and getting investments done and partnerships built. So we're really excited to be at this stage, and we're building out our team and the team of our partners to make sure that we can be fully operational in Q1 of 2025. Next slide. This is my last. So please keep in touch, reach out. We are going to have, we have a community team that's focused on a lot of community engagement and outreach. We're going to have a policy team, a labor and workforce kind of coordination. So please don't be strangers. And certainly we'll be putting out additional information in the future as we get more clarity and can help translate on terms of the agreement. But really excited to be in this conversation in partnership with all of you to ensure that we can leverage this program to its full potential. Thank you so much, and I'll turn it back to Courtney.
Thank you. Thanks so much, Beth. It's so exciting, the work that you're driving on the Climate United front. We'll get to questions later. We're going to just talk about opportunity at work for a little bit. And then I see that there was some dropped in the chat, and I bet there was more in the Q&A. So we'll circle back to that. You can probably easily see why opportunity at work is honestly just we're very proud to support Climate United with any data or narrative or work that we conduct, just to make sure that we're optimizing existing networks and really leaning into programs and organizations that are really doing the work and supporting so many individuals get into the clean energy sector. I wanted to spend a little bit of time. You can think about kind of the next probably 20 minutes or so of this part of the presentation in 3 sections. Wanted to first ground you all on this call, and looking at some of the titles, some of you might be familiar with opportunity at work and our talent category that we focus on, who are stars. We're going to spend a little bit of time to root you in that terminology, some of our best practices and impact to date, where we're seeing tremendous labor market shifts for the first time in about 30 years. Then want to make sure we spend time to talk about so what does it mean for stars in the clean energy economy and sector? And third, leave you with some things to possibly consider as you're thinking about your own workforce development strategies, or maybe you're partnering on the ground with new stakeholders. So certainly want to give you some things to consider and maybe some potential for exploration with opportunity at work down the road. We can go to the next slide here. This is just a quick warm-up if you're so interested to participate in, just to warm up your fingers. We have a question here. Really, what are the skills that you've acquired through your work experience? Maybe the top 2 skills that you've picked up, not from traditional education, but just skills that you've learned through the job. If you want to drop into the chat, that would be really great. The purpose of that exercise is really just to root us in the context here of what we're talking about. We want you to think about the skills you have and where you got those skills and how those skills have propelled you to your next job. We'll go on to the next slide here. So let's kind of jump in. This is that first segment of who is opportunity at work, who are stars. And we talk about stars fundamentally as a business case. At opportunity at work, we understand that if you want to see a more fair labor market for stars, we have to work with employers to ensure that star skills are recognized as the solution for the talent challenges they face. Because all too often, even in the exercise we're doing in the chat, which some of these are really great, those skills are also invisible on someone's resume for a star. A lot of times employers are not seeing the skills that they're actually doing on the job, and they're purposely screening them out. So there's no doubt in our minds that this is the case, right? And we have fundamental evidence to prove that as well. We can move on to the next slide. So who are stars? There's more than 70 million workers across the United States who are skilled through alternative routes instead of a bachelor's degree. This is actually the majority of our workforce, our stars. They've gained skills by going to community college, working on the job, participating in short-term credentials, active military service. in the same way everyone does, just by showing up every day and gaining skills. Stars represent the full diversity of our country. We can go ahead and move to the next slide. So you can see that stars actually overwhelmingly represent the majority of our Black workers, our Hispanic workers, our Native American workers, rural workers, women workers, older stars, veterans, and more. But traditionally, again, we've been screening them out, or we haven't been advancing stars in the way that truly honors and represents the skills that they have today and the skills that they will have tomorrow. And on the flip side, it's really not going great for employers across the country either. Companies need talent and they need local talent, but there is a tremendous signaling issue. It's mismatch, right? And so we're working towards trying to equip those stars to understand the skills that they have to progress in the labor market, but for really demand on employers to think about skills-based hiring in a way that is inclusive of stars, because right now it isn't. We can go ahead and move to the next slide. Here's the reality at present. We talk about this at Opportunity at Work, is that we kind of have a math problem. Employers say that they need skills, and that's true, but they often are not hiring for skill. Employers are often screening out millions of applicants before these potential employees ever get to even show their skills. They assume that if you don't have that degree and the work history that follows from that degree, that you might just not be worth considering. So these days, we're excluding even more stars. So well over 60% of US working age adults lack a four-year degree, and they're excluded from opportunity. 60% of active US workers who don't have that degree, and yet a majority of the new jobs created do say they require one, even if it's not actually required. So we're looking at an opportunity gap. It's really not a skills gap. In addition to being deeply unfair, it's hurting our businesses, it's certainly hurting our local economies. And if we stopped excluding workers without a college degree and really gave them the support they need, it would create a better labor market for all. Next slide. So we've talked about that over 50% of the workforce are stars. The gap in wages for stars and workers with a bachelor's degree has grown larger in the last 30 years alongside degree inflation. And this is actually new to this generation. It takes a star 30 years of working to earn what a bachelor's degree worker makes on day one out of college. That's pretty phenomenal. So again, on the first day on the job, a college grad earns what a star does after 30 years of working and gaining skills. Next slide. 33 million stars have the skills for higher paid work. But we're going to go a step further. In no world would 70 million people represent a monolith, and that is true of stars as well. And unfortunately, too often when we talk to organizations about stars, they implicitly conflate stars with low skill. And low wage, we know, certainly does not mean low skill, but there is a strong perception. So in fact, let's take a look at that breakdown, starting on the left here. There are about 3 million stars in high wage jobs today. They represent 3 million proof points about what stars are actually capable of. In the middle, we have a terminology and we say they're rising stars. So we have 33 million rising stars, 33 million US workers today. If they were given access and opportunity, these workers already have the skills for huge wage gains, but they're often blocked from mobility. Then we also have our forming stars, and they have more limited wage gains available to them, and they may benefit from targeted interventions. But I want to be clear that all too often when we think of stars, people tend to lean into this group, but we want to pay attention again to those rising stars as well. We can go ahead and move to the next slide. Opportunity at Work spent a few years really understanding this labor market data and research. And stars have always obviously existed and performed in the labor market, but we started using the terminology stars. And essentially we opened up the talent category of stars to be named, to be realized, so that employers and other entities could actually have active solutions for stars mobility. with that, we were really, across the entire country, we talked to so many different stakeholders, stars themselves, employers, and the narrative, the perception around stars and the skills that they have was the most transformative learning that I think we've done as an organization. And so we really wanted to get closer to our mission, that to work for and alongside stars and drive economic mobility in the labor market, we have to actually build a movement. We actually have to build a campaign. So the first step was building awareness. So we're fortunate enough to be partnered with Ad Council. It's a national campaign called Tear the Paper Ceiling. And I mention it here because we believe strongly that it is a service to the field of workforce to encourage employers, policymakers, and stars themselves to really embrace the terminology. It really matters to bring awareness to this population of workers that, again, comprise of half of the US labor market. It's been a powerful, powerful tool for us to not just gain awareness, but we actually are starting to see in a short time period, knowing there's a lot of work to do still, some behavior shifts. So go ahead and go to the next slide. So kind of so what? From the awareness to creating the talent category of stars, doing the campaign, what have we seen? So we're up at about a year in the first anniversary, and we've had a lot of different, impressions across, but the thing that I'm most excited about is we've actually seen open up access for stars. So there's about 60 plus organizations as part of the campaign. And just within a year, we actually saw that within our coalition members, there was close to 35,000 jobs opened up to stars that were previously not, with the work that we were doing together, which is pretty phenomenal. We can go ahead and move to the next slide. One of the things that's important to us as an organization is that we don't operate in silos. And so we work very closely with stars to consider our resources, our narrative, our analytics, and certainly a lot of our campaign abilities. LaShawna Lewis has been active with Opportunity.org for a couple years. She's the chair of our Stars Advisory Council. And she has this quote that we love. People tell me I'm one in a million when actually I'm one in a millions. And again, it just goes back to the power of narrative and where people feel seen and valued. We can go ahead and go to the next slide. Another so what? What happens from awareness? What happens from this narrative? Where are we actually seeing impact and change? While Tear the Paper Ceiling has been really tremendous on the private sector, we're actually starting to see a lot of movement on the public sector side as well, which is something that, looking at some of those folks on who are here today, it looks like you kind of represent the public sector. So there's been a lot of innovation around stars and skills-based hiring. We can go ahead and move to the next slide. So as an example, the state of Maryland, a couple years ago, they were the first state to actually remove degree requirements from some of their jobs. And we worked with Opportunity.org in the state of Maryland about the unique challenges that stars faced within Maryland at the time. Governor Hogan was the mayor, and he really did recognize the need for change in hiring and sourcing and mobility, and he took action. He enacted an executive order to eliminate degree requirements for about 10,000 state job roles. And the impact was immediate and substantial. So it led to a 41% increase in stars hires in only 4 months. And that was a sea change. It sparked a spurge of qualified stars candidates applying for roles that they might have previously thought were out of reach. So how did this happen? What did Maryland do? One, they removed unnecessary degree requirements from job listings. They reworked those listings to focus on skills rather than degrees. And they sent clear signals to encourage stars to apply, and they actively search for stars. So this model was so effective, and it really served as a domino, because next slide, what we've seen now is that there's actually been about 22 states taking similar steps. And it's been really amazing to see that we've seen close to 460,000 jobs now open to stars that were previously not. So again, the power of understanding who stars are, the data, the narrative to really push some change to open up the labor market to stars, and not just to have stars in entry-level roles, to have stars have a mobile career pathway is really fundamental. Next slide. So now that you've got a little bit of a grounding, hopefully, on kind of who stars are, the impact to date, and kind of where we're seeing some momentum as far as accessibility and sourcing and hiring for stars, I want to transition into the kind of clean energy sector. We recognize that everyone here is aware of the significant job growth anticipated in the energy sector. You're all working there. You're all on the ground. So we're here to kind of reinforce, certainly applaud, and hopefully be a part of the solutions that I know you're working towards, and know that all of you here kind of deeply care about the localized workforce development and what that means. We'll go ahead and move to the next slide. So the energy industry, particularly the clean energy job growth, it's not controversial to suggest that the energy industry needs workers. The number of U.S. energy sector jobs grew from 3.8% from 2021 to 2022, and clean energy jobs grew 3.9%, which outpaced overall U.S. employment, which was 3.1% in the same period. In the last year for which we have data, we saw huge increases in jobs for grid modernization, hydrogen, fuel cell vehicles, natural gas vehicles, and offshore wind, amongst other. And in the category of electricity generation, the vast majority of new jobs were in solar and wind, and that was just for 2022 data. Next slide. Some of the growth is driven by new projects. Yes, the Energy Information Administration expects renewable deployment to grow by 17% this year and account for almost a quarter of electricity generation. Deloitte analysts identified skills gaps across core roles and found that there's already a shortage of workers with the required skills, including electrical engineering, manufacturing processes, computer science, tooling, mechanical engineering, automation, and machining. And the training pipeline for the relevant workforce of welders, machinists, and engineers across higher education institutions, including both 2- and 4-year colleges, technical and trade schools, shows that there was a potential talent supply challenge in multiple states too. So already, there already was a gap, and with all the opportunity ahead, we're seeing now where there really is some in-demand jobs and where we're seeing those skill shortages on the supply side. Next slide. We know that's a problem. We know that you all also know it's a problem, and we expect to see steady growth in wind and solar and electric vehicle manufacturing. According to the BLS, solar installers and wind turbine technicians will be among the 15 fastest growing occupations in the field through 2032. And these are just some examples. Overall, the EV job growth is expected to be at 5.3%. And the manufacturing jobs are actually slower growing than some of the jobs that we probably don't think about as much when it comes to clean energy. But the demand for engineering and software developers at 26%, it's a hot spot in EV. And all of these are jobs that pay medium wages or higher. And that's kind of the key point that we want to make is workers are needed in a host of different jobs in this industry. It is so fast. Some of them are obvious, and frankly, they're already relatively accessible. 2, we need a significant increase in the number of frontline workers, but we also need to recognize the rich opportunity within this industry to create more opportunities in and more pathways up. That 9 million number is wild, and it represents a more than doubling of the energy workforce in this country, but it will almost certainly take a far higher number, if you will, workforce transactions to actually get us there. And that's what we mean by this in and up. And we'll talk about that. We can go to the next slide. I'm going to invite Delia. I see that you joined me here a couple slides ago for this part of the exercise. This iceberg is certainly something Opportunity at Work uses in our conversation because it really is a graphics that's just say, well, what's above water here? We hear employers complaining that they cannot find the skilled talent that they need, and we're having trouble reaching out. They define the right candidates, the right skilled candidates, local talent, diverse talent. They say this is that there is nothing that they can do to solve the problem, but what's not visible is what's under the waterline. Let's dive into a few factors that got us in today's labor market, which again is not working on behalf of stars. We'd love for you in the chat to utilize it and signal other possible barriers that you experience if you're in this field and what you see as far as the sourcing and the hiring process. But Delia, given your experience, Delia, before she joined us at Opportunity at Work, spent many years running her own company and being, a lead of talent acquisition. So I wanted to invite you, Delia, just to talk to us a little bit about this graphic. What was your experience and what you have seen?
Yeah, this graphic really speaks to me because I saw so many of these under the waterline issues in talent acquisition. I'm going to highlight 3: degree inflation, software with biased algorithms, hiring managers' bias towards candidates with a college degree because they assume there's only one way to gain skills. For example, 1/3 of network analysts are stars, but 88% of job openings require a college degree. So many network analysts would be ruled out from their own jobs. The software would rule them out, and a recruiter would never see their resume because it's programmed to rule out candidates with degrees if a college degree is put into the job description. A real life example of how this plays out is when I was working with an engineering firm in Minnesota. One of the recruiters found a network analyst with unique skills required for the job, and the job had been open for over 60 days. The candidate had all the necessary skills, but not a college degree. Their hiring manager was refusing to interview the candidate. The recruiter was downright angry, and after applying some pressure, the manager agreed to give the candidate a 30-minute phone screen, and of course ended up hiring the candidate because he had the necessary skills. This manager would have been 100% complaining about the lack of skills in the marketplace when it was clear that that was not the case. And we can't rely on one fiery recruiter at a time, fighting for one candidate at a time. We need to bring awareness to that skills can be gained in many places. These types of bias also impact stars' ability to get promoted. There are so many stories of stars that we've all heard having to train a new employee with a college degree to do a job that the star has not been given access to because they don't have a college degree. And when I say access to, not given access to the increase in pay and title, because they clearly have the job because they're doing the job and training a new hire to go into that job. And this really starts with, a lot of this has to do with job descriptions. And I was giving a talk to talent acquisition leaders. And at the end of the talk, one of the VPs of talent from a Fortune 500 company approached me and said she hadn't thought about this perspective of stars and skills and realized that her organization in their applicant tracking system, when you opened a new job rec, it defaulted to college degree. And somebody had to think to remove it and focus on skills. And she said that she knew that people were just overlooking that and leaving a college degree on the requirement when it wasn't necessary. The good news is she went back to her organization and fixed it. But these inaccurate job descriptions hurt stars, but they also hurt companies because they're missing out on skilled workers. I'll throw it back to you, Courtney.
Thanks, Delia. And I know Delia's been, I feel like on a road show a little bit across the country, working with some of our partners in the clean energy space. What are you hearing from some of the clean energy stakeholders as far as what really are these true challenges, systemic barriers that are not enabling a lot of talent acquisition strategists to capture and open up sourcing opportunities for stars?
So I hear from many in the energy industry, from employers to local organizations, that there are entry-level origin gateway jobs that are open to stars today. They want to focus on welcoming a diverse workforce and ensure workers understand why clean energy is an industry they should consider to attract additional workers. And they're also very worried about upper mobility for these workers, and they want to ensure that they can get to destination and high-paying jobs. They feel that the energy industry really has stars hit the paper ceiling, and they want the data and support from us to open up those pathways so that they can focus on skills. And that's why, the research you're doing with Climate United and others is so important, to give the workforce and the employers the data they need to ensure stars have upward mobility within their organizations.
That's great. Thanks, Zoe. Well, that's a nice segue too. We can go ahead and go into the next slide. So one of the things that Delia is talking about is opportunity at work. We've studied about 130 million worker transitions across stars to understand how stars are achieving mobility through skills-based pathways, to really translate the data to employers so they understand, like, this is what's happening. Imagine if we did this times 10. These pathways, or in other words, roadmaps for a worker's career progression, they're often blocked. They're especially blocked right there in that gateway job for Hispanic and Black stars. And we also see tremendous inequity with women who are not enjoying the same wage gains as men counterparts here. So this data, this study of these transitions have been truly fundamental for us to really pinpoint where there could be opportunity, what needs to be further scaled, and really some inflection points of how do you actually open up mobility across the board so that it's truly inclusive. Go to the next slide, please. And those kind of millions, they're a part of the solution to our talent needs. When you consider stars, you address access to limited talent pools by simply increasing the number of workers you're looking at. There's so many benefits to really thinking about stars incorporation. Skills-based hiring practices in lieu of degree screens decrease time to hire. It increases diversity, improves employer engagement, and also retention. Next slide, please. So now that you've seen both the opportunity represented by the workforce in the energy sector and the true risk of excluding stars from the workforce equation, I want to take a little bit of time to showcase some of the national pathways into growing energy jobs. In this section, I'm also sharing some research that we did across pathways that we conducted with Climate United for one of their convenings as well, to again kind of understand, like, what might be possible against these pathways. What might we want to consider when we're thinking about a more diversified approach to talent acquisition. Next slide. So I kind of want to set this section up by providing a little bit of framing and focusing on 3 different types of pathways to explore. The first are jobs with historical stars pathways. Those have been validated by labor market data and mobility analysts that we've been doing with over 20 years of data and all those transitions that we were referencing before. The second are potential pathways and analysis of skill similarity, or distance indicates that there's a high degree of potential for workers to successfully transition along those potential pathways. And then the third part of our framing here are jobs with less defined stars pathways. These are ripe for innovative plays, including potential partnerships, experimentation, particularly for those roles that are emerging or that are just brand new to the world. This notion of pathways is useful both for external sourcing as well as internal mobility, reshaping your workforce for growth to deal with new technology to remain competitive, and doing it inclusively. It's going to require a portfolio of strategies and tactics. Next slide. So we're offering a few examples here based on our research, but your mileage may vary, as they say. I'm sure you have different jobs on your list, depending where you are and kind of all the momentum in your area and what type of technologies. But these are the ones that we use here for this example. And the point here really is the framing and the approach. So in that first category that we were talking about, we have some of your usual suspects: wind turbine technicians, solar installers, solar sales representatives. These are very well-established pathways that are inclusive of stars already. We want to do more of that. Then you have in the middle category, we see jobs that have strong skill similarities and they're worth testing. We need a little bit more, but we can certainly pull from adjacent jobs to make some strong hypothesis of where people might be successful. And C, finally on the right, we have jobs with less defined STARS pathways based on limited historical data. And these are opportunities to, again, get creative. And I know some of you are kind of right in the mix of this, working with new partners, creating new partnerships, figuring out funding mechanisms to lift your workforce together instead of operating in silos. We can go to the next slide. Established opportunities like solar installation are inclusive, they're poised for growth. Pathways into middle wage clean energy installation jobs are already established. You can go to the next slide. So here's an example, solar installation, one that I know many of you have thought about on this call. This job is already 85% open to STARS, and it's marked by skills that are highly transferable from lower wage installation and construction roles. So these are established pipelines for STARS. Looking at the labor market data that we found in one city, Milwaukee, the top sourcing job for solar installers right now is coming from an electrician, followed by maintenance and repair, and interesting enough, computer support specialists who show up here as well. Computer support specialist, by the way, is just a significant transformative occupation to keep in mind for a wide array of career pathways. It's what we call a gateway role that serves as that springboard to many different types of careers and really that catalyst to get to a destination high-paying role. Next slide. So let's take another look at the wind turbine technician. So there's a lot going on in these slides. We're going to send you these slides later. So if you're into this type of weeds, I invite you to explore and follow up with us. But let me kind of walk you through it. On the left-hand side of the slide, we have what we call our lower wage origin jobs. And these are great sources for talent if you're looking to hire wind turbine technicians. Two of the more common origin jobs for wind turbine technicians at a national level are actually vending service technicians or vehicle mechanics who enjoy who see a 27% wage gains when they move to a wind turbine technician role. And the interesting thing about this pathway is that it's also a proven path to more upwardly mobile jobs, such as the aircraft mechanic or industry machinery mechanic. So getting workers to traverse this pathway can be a really powerful mobility opportunity. And I fully admit that it's often difficult for employers to consider it a win when their employees might leave their organization, even if it's for a higher paying role, but it's not unheard of. Some employers are leaning in to understand kind of what their role is in an individual's pathway. And I think we're seeing more employers leaning to this, especially with all the emphasis on place-based investment and worker mobility. This one is also, as an example, been really important on that flip side to call STARS in. We need STARS to be part of the clean energy sector more than ever before. But STARS also want to feel secure that the pathway they're getting on is going to be one that's fluid, that allows them to progress in their careers. And so when they can see, again, these are transitions that are already happening in our workforce. When they see the potential and employers can understand their role and how to do this, it really, really could be beneficial for so many. Next slide. Other in-demand jobs in energy, such as software developers, mechanical engineers, project managers, they're a little less accessible, but they have high potential for STARS. Next slide. So in these potential pathways, other in-demand jobs in energy are a little less accessible as they are right now. But as I said at the top of our time together, energy jobs are certainly not limited to solar installers and wind turbine technicians. Today, right now, as an example, over half of Tesla's software engineering jobs require a bachelor's degree. Over 60% of Tesla mechanical engineering jobs require a bachelor's degree. And over a quarter of next year's energy project managers require a bachelor's degree. And these are all very strong potential skilled pathways for STARS. Next slide. So now you kind of get into those emerging pathways, that last bucket. Some pathways like hydrology are promising, but they truly lack a record of mobility right now for STARS. We don't have it. Those transitions are not happening, and these are different type of roles and different type of technology. So there's going to be a change to some degree. So, here's an emerging pathway. Hydrologists study the movement of water on and through the Earth's crust. These positions typically require a BA, but there are professional certificates available as well as licensure requirements, which vary by state. So there's not enough data yet to determine whether or not this is a viable career pathway for stars, but it may be helpful to mention that 94% of these occupations include a mix of stars and non-stars, and that's probably higher than you might have guessed. So right now, the pathways into this position are largely academic, but in a skills-based paradigm, keeping our minds open to alternative routes like workforce learning, competency-based education, and stackable credentials, stars can and should be part of the solution set. Next slide. So to wrap up, because I know we want to leave some time, so I'll try to get through these last slides pretty quickly. There are significant implications for sourcing new talent, and it varies by strength of the pathway. So all to say that filling workforce requirements will require a portfolio approach. There's really not a one-size-fits-all solution, and furthermore, the solutions will deploy. It will yield benefits over multiple time horizons, in the near term, in the medium, and the long term. In those historical pathways, there's really no regret moves you can confidently make right now because they're backed by transition workers have already been making in the labor market. For those high potential pathways, targeting stars and jobs with strong skill similarities, those adjacent pathways, is a low risk sourcing strategy. And finally start thinking about those less defined pathways. And that's going to take a little bit of time to develop. As a network, we should share those in real time of what we're learning and, so we can all move faster together. So to me, we consider it a training landscape in this area and in this industry and within all of our own collective organizations. Next slide. So some of the ways that we're thinking about, well, how do you actually get through these implications? How can you actually implement and build models and resources in the most optimized way? Really, there's already really great resources out there, and some of you are probably equipped with those. If not, encourage you to continue to source them, and I'm sure IRAC is such a great thought partner in that. But there are great resources around skills and pathways in this industry already. We want to think about working with partners on the ground to really equip them with the right sourcing and the hiring tools so that stars can be brought in and not just brought in for those initial jobs, but can be mobile across different career pathways. And we really want to do this together and also do this with stars within the industry. Because stars already have a presence in the clean energy sector, there's also a role for stars to play to make sure that we're building talent solutions that will work for this talent category. Next slide. We also just want to call out that we have seen amazing programs who have always been around, and then some are new. I think some might actually be on this call. But on the left, Solar Ready Vet's a program of the U.S. Department of Energy, and on the right, a really wonderful training provider, Grid Alternatives, an IRAC member. There is innovation. There are people who are seeing impact, who are thinking about talent differently, and who are mobilizing employers in a newish way to truly be inclusive, to be local. So hooking into these partners, understanding what's working, what can be replicated as a field, I think will be really beneficial for all of us in this work, because we know at the end of the day, next slide, workforce is local and it's complicated and it's rooted in culture, it's rooted in economic development and opportunity, and it takes a lot of resources to do that. Next slide. Because we know there's tremendous challenges. I saw someone drop a note that, criminal records, for example, is a barrier that they often see. When we talk to our partners, we know that there's so many challenges, and usually the solutions are coming in fragmentation. And so being able to take a step back and say, what is the employer's role in skills-based hiring? What are the signals that they're sending? How can community organizations get the resources they need to be helpful to remove some of these barriers? How can training providers and universities alike understand the skills needed to really fill the gap? This is work that I know we're all really committed to, but again, I do want to recognize it is complicated. Opportunity at Work wants to be helpful, again, in some of the narrative and the data to equip some of this work to happen a little bit faster. And also we want to make sure we're disseminating through appropriate networks. Next slide. So I'm going to end us. When you all get this deck, you will see that there's a few different appendix slides with the Opportunity at Work slides that have some resources now that you're interested in understanding, like, well, maybe what are some ideas that we could do if you're a small and medium-sized employer, or if you're a workforce development organization and you want to understand, hey, like, who are the stars in my county where I serve? We have a slew of research papers to some interactive dashboards online that tell that story, that hopefully can equip and, again, I think inspire some different types of solutions. So I'll stop there. Thank you so much. I want to leave time for the questions, and we hope to learn more from you on this journey.
Thank you, Courtney, and thank you, Beth, for just providing such a wealth of information. We had a lot of questions come through. If you have not had an opportunity to go to the question and answer option to drop your chat, you're welcome to do so now. We already have 5 answered questions that you can go back and review if you haven't been following the question answer. Thank you, Beth, for dropping the answers to several great questions that we received, but we also received a couple of questions that were in the chat. One is from Miss Erica Baptiste. Her question is, and I think this is for you, Beth, are data tracking requirements tied to funding reporting for impact value listed? And if you need me to read that question again, Beth, I'll be happy to do so.
Thank you. I'm trying to
no
find
problem.
it.
She's asking,
go ahead.
Do you see it? Are data tracking requirements tied to funding reporting for impact value listed? And this question was in the chat.
Okay. So I'm not entirely sure if it's asking whether there's data and reporting requirements for investments or whether we're leveraging data to make investments. I guess the answer to both is yes. So, I think there are significant reporting requirements of the program. And so we are, but we have not gotten the finalized metrics and reporting templates yet from the EPA. That process is going through their internal processes right now. But we do expect to be reporting at the project transaction level, both on what we are financing as well as the benefits from that financing. So things like greenhouse gas reduction, job creation and retention, solar generation, energy savings. So looking at both kind of what we're doing and what benefits are being generated, and then to whom, which is really important for us in order to both report back to the EPA and other stakeholders, as well as measure our own success.
Thank you, Beth, for that. And there's one more question. I don't remember who it's from, but it says, what geography accounts for the other 10%?
Yes, so that was probably confusing. It's not kind of adding them up. It's looking at what percentage of our investments are in low-income and disadvantaged communities, what percent are in rural communities, and what percent are in tribal communities. There could be investments that are in all 3. But it's not a cumulative kind of adding up those numbers. There will be some investments that benefit low-income communities or benefit communities that have lacked access, but where the address of the building might not be in a low-income or disadvantaged community. And so we're looking from our side, we're looking both at where the investment is located, as well as who is benefiting from that investment. Some of those will meet the definition and requirements from the EPA, and some of them may not, but we have flexibility to still do those investments as long as we're excited and comfortable with who we are benefiting. So as most folks probably know, most of those metrics in the federal government are geographic based or location based.
Thank you. Courtney, I think I have a question for you. It said the STARS pathway for wind turbine, wind technician, and solar installer. Is it accurate to say that these jobs are considered higher wage jobs for rising stars and forming stars to go into? And this question is in the Q&A.
Yeah, thank you. It's a great question. How we both wind technicians and solar installation, when you look at the average wages, they really fall more into that gateway job, where they can then be able to gain the skills on the job to go on to kind of like times 4 or 5 destination roles that are higher wage. And so when we're talking about these roles, we're really focusing more on where they are, the origin, gateway, and destination. And so in that point of the career, it is that gateway. We're not at the destination role yet that we would like them to be. So it's more kind of somewhere in the middle on that one.
Okay, thank you. And if Courtney, if you can finish, I see that you were typing your answer in the Q&A option. If you can finish your response there.
I was just doing that. Thank you.
Then we'll have that for reference. Kiera wants to know, when will this recording be available? We like to say within a week or so, to just gather all of the material that has been provided for this webinar, the presentation. Everything will be sent out and posted on the website. And I think that website was dropped in the chat. Avery, if you can drop that website again for future reference and past webinars, that will be helpful. Thank you so much. Let me check the chat and make sure we do have another question. Oren, you are very welcome. We have a question from Wendy. Do we have a gateway career tracker for solar installers, similar to what you showed for the wind turbine? Also, how does the solar stack up against the union opportunities?
We do have some data. Would love to follow up. It looks like, Wendy, we snagged your email from Delia. So we'll have to I'd love to learn from you as well. We do have some information around some solar installation jobs. And also we did a little bit of research, which was kind of fascinating to understand job titles around solar installation too, because it's not universal, that all employers, small, medium, large size, are saying like, we need this job, it's called a solar installer. We found all these other job descriptions and job titles, which was really helpful to understand the skills to then think about the transition and apply it differently. So that one actually got a little bit more granular than we originally hypothesized. So we do have that, and we'll have to follow up about it. And if anyone else is interested, please contact us. And it is a great, I don't have, honestly, the information to answer the second part of your question right now around how's the solar stack up to the union opportunities. Definitely tremendous potential and opportunity there, and more coordination needs to happen. And I think the whole objective is to really look at it as a collective and not, again, in a silo there. So would welcome any input any of you all have about your experience in that space as well.
Thank you, Courtney. I saw that Delia grabbed Wendy's email address. There's a lot of activity and many conversations that are happening in the chat. If you have not had an opportunity to follow that the chat will be archived, and the panelists will have an opportunity to follow up with all of you who have put comments in the chat and provided contact information. I don't think we have any more questions. This webinar was a wealth of information. Thank you again, Beth, Courtney, and Delia, for being a part of the National Clean Energy Workforce Alliance webinar series. This is definitely an opportune time to provide information on the green gas reduction funds. I had to get that acronym in order, and information on opportunity at work. So I thank you all for joining. Once again, thank you for your time. It's always a pleasure to provide you with such great information in order for us to be intentional about the work we're doing in the clean energy sector. So I want to admonish you to have a wonderful day, and we look for you to join us again in August, the third Thursday in August, at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Thank you again. Have a wonderful day.